Hey there, welcome to the Reinsurance Podcast, the place where we dive into all things reinsurance, the coolest part of insurance. We're your hosts, Jerad and Ben, a couple of ex-practitioners who loved the industry so much we founded Supercede to tackle some of its biggest headaches. And we're here to share our insights and stories with expert guests as we uncover what's really going on in the industry.
Welcome back, folks, to our favorite kind of episode. It's time for the news. Hello, Jerad. What month are we in this time?
June.
Yeah,
The reinsurance news for June. We did have to check. It's been a whirlwind.
Which month are we in? It is. We are recording this with a sort of 28 degrees here in London.
Sweltering.
And very cold in the studio with the air conditioning, and nobody brought any jumpers with them.
Yeah.
But all is well in June. So what's
It
on the
just
news?
felt bringing a jumper out today was the wrong life choice. But in hindsight, maybe I should have done it. We'll dive straight in because you were also in Zurich earlier in the month.
True.
And the first article that I wanted to touch on, I've got my phone here, so we're reading the notes. But the European P&C insurers are vulnerable with the reinsurers unlikely to restore coverage levels coming out of Moody. Most of that coverage restriction being applied to sort of weather-related losses. But I know it was quite a central theme to what was going on in the Zurich conversations.
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting things, just going around and talking to clients and brokers and reinsurers in Zurich, was we saw at a global level this sort of attitude that the last couple of years had been really good for reinsurers because reinsurers had posted quite good results. However, when you actually start to dissect those results and look on a more regional basis, the reason those results were good is because the wind didn't blow in the US. We didn't have major hurricanes causing massive destruction in North America, which is just such a large piece of the pie that as a result, for the large part, it looked as though reinsurance was having a really good couple of years. However, if you start to look zoomed in at individual regions, including Europe actually had quite a challenging year. You know, people writing treaty business in Europe weren't actually making much money doing so. And as a result, the conditions there are still pretty harsh. And likewise, if you're a buyer in Europe right now, things are quite tough because not only have you had the pushback on terms and conditions and the sort of withdrawing a bit of capital over the last couple of years that's happened market-wide, you're now also dealing with the fact that you're being priced based on a region that's been quite turbulent with various floods, the big Turkish earthquake and all sorts going on recently. So, actually quite a tough market in Europe right now.
Yeah. Well, and it sort of leads on to this next article that we've got here where AM Best is revising their global reinsurance outlook to be positive. Like, again, looking at it from a global perspective is a lens, but you're also, as you say, is like sometimes you need to double click on specific areas. How are you thinking about this piece of news?
So I think it does actually surprisingly fit with what I've just said. So you might think, oh, wait, so these good results that we've talked about have only happened because the wind hasn't blown and we're going into what's meant to be the hurricane season from hell. Surely it's going to be a negative outlook because if we have hurricanes, things will get bad. But I think what AM Best points to quite astutely in their discussion and their outlook being positive here is actually an acknowledgement of the fact that because we haven't had new capital entrants, apart from, we'll come on to a couple of recent ones, because we haven't had this class of 22, 23, 24, because we haven't had alternative capital flooding in because of interest rates being quite attractive and therefore making capital move elsewhere, actually the reinsurance markets are free to remain very disciplined. And so if we do have a mega loss year, rates are just going to go up again. And there's not going to be sufficient competition. It's still going to be a hardish market after that point. It's not going to suddenly mean that reinsurers are undercapitalized and unable to put up rates. So because of that, I agree. I think it is a positive outlook for the reinsurers because they're the only providers. They've got control at the moment. Until
well, and as you said, the conditions are ripe for new entrants. We've been wondering for a while around like when would we get like the class of 22 or 23 or 24. And we haven't yet seen like a massive influx, but what we did just see the announcement of was the establishment of Oak Re, was run by Cathal Carr from Renry. One of the dominant players from one of the earlier, was it 92 class?
Yes.
I was like 80% sure it was 92. But he's come from that pedigree, right? The the firm probably best known for leaning into a shift in market conditions and establishing a dominant reinsurance platform off the back of that, looking at this might be a unique sort of combination of conditions that make setting up a reinsurer right now really, really strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting at the moment. Difficult. In fact, there's a really good talk from Alpine Re on the challenges of raising money from private equity right now, given all the other options out there for those funds. Also, given the fact that private equity is sort of fairly overextended into our category already, and has to tighten its belt a bit in general in this sort of current conditions. But looking to Lloyd's instead is quite a smart idea for reinsurance, I feel, because Lloyd's has rarely been more bullish, I guess, on new syndicate formation, on bringing new business to Lloyd's, on helping new syndicates to get started and innovating new business. I suspect that with that will come a bit of expectation that Oak Re isn't a cookie cutter additional Lloyd's syndicate that takes reinsurance business from other syndicates that can happily host it already. I expect there'll be an expectation that they're going to be leading new capacity that's welcome and needed. But yeah, strong management team and I'm sure up to the task.
Well, and it'll be interesting to see how they position themselves and where they go. But as we've talked about, Lloyd's is losing a bit of ground as a reinsurance hub. So it'd be interesting to see if they can sort of help to reestablish. Actually, Lloyd's is a really powerful place to go and source reinsurance.
Indeed.
So we'll see. Continuing a theme, it doesn't mean to be doom and gloom in June, but another one here from Aon. Insurers continue to face capital challenges, right? Like, this is going to be the theme going into this summer. And as you said, we are looking at this looming hurricane season from hell kind of thing. And we're still not into the market still is hardening and kind of nearing what we think is the bottom. But if the consensus continues to be capital challenges remain, what happens if we get massive events in the U.S. during this renewal season, during this hurricane season, I mean? But Aon's sort of highlighting as well capital challenges here.
Yeah, and I think there's a full spectrum here, right? There are insurance companies for whom the withdrawal of sort of reinsurance support or the increase in retentions is challenging. For some, it's annoying. For others, it's existential.
Yeah.
And we will watch, I'm sure, in some ways, insurance companies disappearing, but equally coverage for policyholders disappearing, which is sad and challenging for the role that insurance is supposed to play in societies. What that means, it means if you're managing insurance companies right now, you need to be taking a really hard look at your various portfolios of business, figure out which ones you can continue to operate and make sure you're operating them really, really well. And think about which reinsurance you need to be buying, what you actually can get from the market, and how you put your best foot forward in that market to get the coverage you need. Because it's a beauty contest out there. Yeah. Believe me, the reinsurers can be choosy who they give their capital to right now.
Yeah. Well, and then the last article we have to talk about is kind of to that exact point. Gallagher coming out saying insurers need to be proactive on their risk management now.
Yeah.
Like it cannot be you just bring it to the market and see what happens. Like it has to be like you are intentional about what you're going to buy. You understand the data that you have and the movement and development of your book and why, and you go out with proactively with the narrative saying, here's what we are doing, and having an awareness of if we have to increase the retention, if we have to, limit the top coverage and sort of maybe take some exposure at the very top as well, like knowing what that impact might look like and being proactive there, because it's certainly not for the faint of heart right now.
No, absolutely.
It's an important time for the industry, but you're right. Like the way you can get ahead of this is by understanding your data, is by leaning into what tools you have available, such that you can say, here's what we do, and here's why we're doing it, and here's why we deserve the capital that we're asking the market for. So,
welcome to the end of June, folks.
Welcome to the end of June.
Still half a year to go. Everybody very excited, I'm sure, for July the 1st renewals coming up imminently. Hopefully all smooth till this point, especially for those using Supercede.
Many of you have chosen to listen to this episode after you've gotten your renewals over the line, so welcome to July, folks. But you're right. It's 1.7's now wrapping up as we speak. We'll probably do a 1.7 recap in July. But yeah, now we're getting ready to go into conference season and things, so summer is fully upon us.
And don't forget, if you're one of those firms that likes to do a summer project, which is like all the stuff we don't normally have time to do, get organizing now. We far too often see people try and attempt big projects during everyone's summer holidays. If you're going to have a go, let's get going.
Now's the time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Any other wisdom for our
Not
news
in the
listeners?
news.
No. Wear sunscreen or sunblock or sun cream or whatever you call it, and a hat, and stay hydrated, folks. It's a hot world out there.
It is. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Reinsurance podcast. If you enjoyed our show, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review to let us know how we're doing, preferably 5 stars. For more insights and updates, follow us on LinkedIn and visit our website at Supercede.